sanitizer, and if you've touched anything, don't touch your face. But you go out without a mask and people look at you like, you're a killer, you could be a carrier, and now you're bringing it to me. And social distancing when you're walking in the street by somebody, it's crazy. Like, people are dodging people like they've got the plague. And I find it really strange because people could have had all kind of diseases before and you didn't have any problem to be, almost in each other's lap. But okay, whatever. Again, it's all about ramping up the fear. People who are not thinking about this from any other perspective other than there's a virus going around, they become, players in this game, but they don't know it's a game. They are fully sincere, but they don't understand this is just one big game. Another reason why in the past this was not implemented could be because they just weren't ready to implement it. It wasn't the time. You see, people say things like, oh, well, we had SARS. Why didn't we have this global shutdown, blah, blah, blah? Well, nobody would take this seriously if we didn't have other things to refer to. Because we refer to it as, well, SARS was this bad, why didn't we lock it down then? But the mere fact that we are aware that such a thing can happen makes us believe that we should take this more seriously. I don't know how to say it. It's like, they didn't really make a big deal about SARS. I don't know if SARS actually killed more people. And I swear SARS is a coronavirus as well. So because they didn't make a big effort or big deal about SARS, we didn't really have the mass hysteria that COVID-19 has created. But we're made aware enough that it is possible to have some type of virus that knocks a huge number of people out. So now people are comparing it to the Spanish flu. They're talking about Ebola. They're talking about this. They're talking about that. You kind of have to have some kind of, I don't know how to describe it, a point of reference. For people to kind of understand what you're dealing with. Because if everybody just went around saying, oh, it's just a flu virus, like SARS or swine flu or whatever, people wouldn't really be frightened because they're like, well, flu comes around every year. What's the big deal? But the fact that we're used to the idea in our lifetime of seeing people being killed allegedly by some strange strain of flu, we're primed to now take a worse flu pandemic seriously. So we just weren't at the place where we were primed to take, like I said, I know people who, had swine flu or whatever, and they were asked, do you want the Tamiflu? And they were like, nah, I'm good. People weren't primed to take things back then like they are now. So why are they going to give people flu? Or why did they do it now instead of then? People just weren't ready. Or more to the point, they weren't ready. Okay? So you've got social media and the mainstream media working together to influence everybody. You've got very visible fear stimulators, like people with 100 packs of tissue and face masks. And all right, let's go to the economy now. people are vulnerable now because they want, how can I say this? People are so reliant upon the government fixing things and bailing things out. We're in a really precarious point in time. We know automation is coming. And one of the ways that you can force automation is by simply doing something that's going to get rid of a lot of the jobs that, could be taken over by robots. You see, this whole virus business is more effective than an alien invasion because it's a nameless, faceless killer. You can't ask a virus, why are you doing this to me? Like you could an alien. You can't communicate with it. You can't negotiate with it. It's indiscriminate. So when it comes to why would they use a virus, it just makes more sense because there's no question that can really be asked apart from where did it come from and how did it spread. Okay, there are reports or people are alleging that China was battling this virus for months before they told us in January that there was actually a problem in China. So how many people traveled in and out of China and took the virus to their country before China opened up its mouth to say, we have an alleged outbreak of coronavirus that's very serious? Again, with SARS, with MERS, with all these other viruses, they tackled it maybe earlier, which meant that it couldn't spread to the degree that it spread now. Had it spread to the point where, how can I say, had it been on a global scale like this coronavirus business, more people maybe would be vaccinated, they'd already be clued up, they maybe would be this. So you couldn't now implement a stronger attack because it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. Before they made a big deal about SARS, but here in the West, we didn't really have a big issue with SARS. So we just thought to ourselves, oh, well, coronavirus must be another flu like swine flu. They made a big deal about it, but, I don't really know. It wasn't a big deal. Our guard and our defenses are down because we think this is just another false cry wolf. You have people like Trump and Boris saying, don't worry, don't stockpile, don't panic. And they let it drag on so that if there really is something making people sick, which I believe there is, it has enough time to take hold. So when you start saying people are getting sick and dying, those numbers are to an extent realistic. There could be genuineness to those numbers because they let it take root before they took action. Whereas before, they took action early so that people would hear enough about the flu but not be affected, so they think, oh, it's no big deal. This, they let it drag on for months before they actually told anybody there was a problem, which gave it plenty of time to spread all over the world to create a pandemic. And people will say, oh, that's the Chinese for you. They're so secretive. They're a communist country, blah, blah, blah. But regardless of how, that is how it was able to spread all over the world to the degree that it has. Especially when you have leaders telling the people, don't stockpile, don't worry, don't this, don't that. That's why I said to you, this is a multi-pronged attack in order to collapse all the old orders. Okay? Because now that this thing has really started to grip the nation through fear and through maybe real genuine cases, you are justified to close businesses, to ration food, to be very conscious of your health. I mean, I think it was last Sunday, we had Mother's Day. And, I met people who said, like, my grandkids came, I'm in the house with a mask, and they're outside talking to me from the front door. And it's like heartbreaking that they've come to see us, but we can't touch. I've met several people who said, I'm missing my nieces and my nephews because I can't go to them and they can't come to me. And we're told now, don't go and visit friends and family. So you have people becoming isolated because of this so-called social distancing and quarantining. Anybody who's not doing that is going to now be attacked by the masses for being a spreader and a killer. You're the one who's spreading it. You could have it and you don't know, and now you're giving it to other people. And this takes me to, again, in Revelations, it talks about there's going to be 2 witnesses speaking out in the end times. And it's like, it says that they die and their bodies are in the street for like 2 or 3 days. And I thought to myself, how the hell can people just be killed and their bodies in the ground? I think it was yesterday or the day before, I saw that in New York, they have a makeshift morgue, which basically looks like a tent in the street. And I said, well, duh. If there are other bodies in the street that they can't move, then 2 more for these witnesses, especially if they're perceived to be troublemakers who are not buying into the hype, no one's going to miss them if they're killed or die as a result of this virus. So although it talks about the 2 witnesses being dead in the street, the way I read it was the assumption that they were the only 2. But if there are people who are being stored in the street in New York right now because there's nowhere to put these bodies, alleged bodies, then of course 2 more is not going to make a big difference. And you have people, they're showing now police, saying to people who allegedly have the virus, go home, you're a killer, you're spreading the virus, stay indoors, and this is the next thing, moving from, regular policing to a police state and getting the military out on the street and giving them power. You see, the whole thing about the antichrist system is that you have 2 things. You have a breakdown of order that is going to cause people to want to receive it. And you have something called an attitude of tolerance. And we see this gradually building through feminism, through the concept of, SJWs and fat shaming and, transgenderism. All of these things are intertwined to break down our morality, to blur the line between good and evil, to blur the line between right and wrong. So people are tolerant of everything and they're not going to resist even things that don't look right. The more we abdicate our power to the government is the more vulnerable we become to the Antichrist. This is what we see in places like China, where they have a technocratic state. Credit scores, any misdemeanor that you commit, it kind of affects your credit score as a good or a bad person. So, they don't want to do certain business with you or whatever because they can just look at your technological ID or whatever. Things like Person of Interest and all these shows, these dramas and movies, they are telling you what these elites are planning. It's not a coincidence that time after time we see predictive programming in these movies or in these shows. It's to desensitize you. So by the time you get there, you are receptive. You are tolerant. Okay, that's what the Antichrist system is going to be about. And that's what I was saying about this girl that was on this breakfast show talking about it doesn't matter what God you serve. Shout out to Mike from On Point Preparedness. He showed a video in Israel where you have Jews, Muslims and Christians singing, I believe it's Bob Marley, One Love, together. Again, we know Aleister Crowley spoke about love under the law. But his law is the law of do as thou wilt. His law is the law of lust. His law is the law of worship yourself and your pleasures and your desires instead of God, which is what I believe is in Timothy. In the last days, people will be lovers of money. They'll be lovers of self. They'll be boasters. They'll be proud. They'll be without natural affection. This is what the scripture tells us in 1 Timothy 4 and 2 Timothy 3. okay, that in the last days perilous times will come. People will depart from the faith, they'll depart from the truth, they'll heap up teachers to themselves, they will chase after fables, they will trade, the truth for lies and things like that. We're in that time because media has advanced so much that our morality has been degraded. So kind of along the lines of Jews, Muslims and Christians singing together this song, talking about love, although they don't use the biblical definition of love, which is found in 1 Corinthians 13. The other day I went online and I saw Tyler Perry, and Tyler Perry is singing, he's got the whole world in his hands. And it's like several different celebrities singing the same portion of that song. He's got the whole world in his hand. He's got the whole world in his hand. After Tyler Perry, it was like Mariah Carey and some other people. And I said, look how you're kind of trying to unify the world with all these different people in different places singing the same song together. They're pushing this agenda of love and unity, but it's a false love. It's an antichrist love. It's not the love of God, and it's not a love for the things of God. It's men trying to do things in their own power and uniting against God. So I found that really interesting that there's a poster. I saw it in the paper, but I wish I'd taken the paper now. And it's like to show solidarity, I think it was for the health workers, the NHS workers. There was a poster again, and it talks about love. And what do we see in the background? The rainbow. So now you're talking about the gay agenda, the LGBT agenda, and you're talking about tolerance, you're talking about respect, you're talking about the health workers. That's why I said to you, everything has a it's multifaceted. It's not just one thing. Everything has a multiple faces to it. Yes, they're talking about praising the National Health Service, medical team and workers and all of the people in the medical professions that are working overtime through this quote unquote crisis. But it's also about unity. The rainbow, which, obviously has been perverted from the rainbow of Noah's Ark. Some people say it's upside, the rainbow is upside down to align with actually chakras, the colors of chakras. That's what it's the rainbow symbol. Obviously, we know it's more commonly now associated with LGBT than it is with the Bible. And what is the whole thing about the rainbow? All encompassing, unity. So this poster that they want people to put up in the window, you may not know it's about the NHS. So now you look like, if you put this poster in your window, you're celebrating LGBT. And what really annoyed me about the picture that I saw was it had two children in the bottom, like waving through the window. And I said, this is how they use the children to kind of tug on the heartstrings, Maybe it's a subliminal message to do with LGBT and kids. We know they're trying to normalize pedophilia in places. They're talking about, we're not going to bother to talk about bestiality right now. As long as there's no penetration involved, it's technically not bestiality if you engage in sex acts with animals. I think it's at Canada. I heard something about Canada some time ago, and it's like, huh? So, you've got some people talking about animal rights, going vegan, and then at the same time you have other parts of the world that are like, yeah, but you can engage in sexual depravity with animals. And talking about vegan, this ties into the whole climate change business as well, because I'm not saying that there isn't climate change, but climate change is not necessarily to do with what human beings are doing. But we see there's a big thing about climate change. I get annoyed with this conversation as well, because we've known for decades that climate change is a problem. So Why only now are you making such a big deal? Because you've got Greta running around talking about you're robbing us of our future. You know, some people say that to bring about this technology, you're actually destroying the planet that's supposed to make the planet greener. So how the hell do you care about the environment if you're wrecking the environment to build the technology that you had patents for decades ago? Electric cars are not new. We've had people who designed electric cars 20, 30 years ago. Milk floats and these golf cart caddy things, and they're all electric, have been for decades. And people invented electric cars and they took the patents, paid the people off and benched it because they were not ready. They still, fossil fuels were still very lucrative and profitable. So they didn't want to do electric vehicles and things decades ago when they knew these things were an issue. Plastics, and power stations churning out tons of radiation, not radiation, harmful gases from their power plants and things. They've known for decades these things, how to fix these problems. They just didn't want to. It wasn't in the plan, in the timeline for them to start getting rid of fossil fuels. But now we're at the stage where we're so accustomed to technology that we're ready to be given green technology, smart technology, things that we claim are going to make our life better and easier. So, like I said about tolerance, we're tolerant of technology. We're tolerant of a device in our home that catches our voice and tells us things, and when we ask it questions. And there was some time ago, it might not be last year, it could even be the year before, and it was like, the robot will see you now. It was a show where people were going for not psychiatric treatment per se, but they were going to therapy sessions, but with an AI. And over the last few years, there's been a lot of shows about AI technology, I don't know if you'd call it really a cyborg, but androids, that look very much like humans living with humans. The last Fast and Furious movie, they're pushing that transhumanist agenda hard. This idea of, I think, did I see in the paper talking about how they did a surgery on the eye to give people back their sight, AI technology, injecting not stem cells, I don't know if it was stem cells, directly into the eye or something, and instead of cultivating the tissue externally and putting it in, now they're just injecting it directly into the eye. They're using CRISPR, like all different types of technology where people are incorporating either non-living tissue like metals or whatever, chips and things into people, or they're bringing DNA from other species or whatever. It's becoming really science fiction-y out here, okay? But we are so open to it because we want our problems fixed. We're giving away our privacy. And when I say devices that pick your voice, I'm not talking about just your Alexa. Even your mobile phone, if it's in the room with you, it's picking up your conversations all the time. And I've heard this before years ago, and it happened to me quite recently, ironically, about why do people from Southeast Asia wear the mask. I was having a conversation with somebody about this, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's such an insult that you come to the UK and you wear a mask as if we have more pollution than where you came from. And then one mind said to me, well, maybe that person's got some respiratory problems, so even a smaller amount of pollution is going to make them feel unwell. And one day I was scrolling through YouTube, and Brightside came up with a video, and lo and behold, it's why do people from Southeast Asia wear masks? And if I didn't know that phones pick up on your conversation when it's in the room with you, whether you're aware or not, I would have just thought, wow, that's a crazy coincidence. But you can go on YouTube right now and find video after video of people testifying. I was having a conversation with my wife or my husband about going to this place or renting a hotel. And all of a sudden in Facebook ads or in Google or whatever, hotels or whatever, or destination or travel, information about traveling, according to what I just spoken about recently, popped up on the phone. So when you have smart devices, they can be hacked. We know that already. But they're picking up your conversations all the time and then trying to sell you things based on what it's heard you saying. Okay? So we are becoming more and more policed, more and more watched, more and more losing our freedom more and more because we want convenience. And again, this is all part of the collapsing of the old order, our autonomy, so that we can be policed. Okay? Apparently, Elon Musk is putting loads of satellites out into space because he wants everybody to be covered with Wi-Fi. Again, there's so many things that wind me up. That's why I'm antisocial. I just blame everybody. They're talking right now in the UK about mental health. One of the things that is actually destroying people's mental health is technology in the homes, because when we're constantly being bathed by electromagnetic radiation, especially low level radiation, like from phones and things, it actually changes our ability to feel good. I don't know if it impacts our serotonin production, and serotonin is the happy hormone. When you have that, you feel good. When people work around a lot of electrical equipment, the electromagnetic radiation impacts you physically because we have electricity in our own bodies. And that makes us feel depressed. Having all these Wi-Fi devices, smart meters, internet, and now they want 5G, which is where I'm going next. That actually is going to cause a lot of people to feel dumbed down, suppressed, and depressed. Okay? You see, we're halfway through, so if you're still here, hold on. Okay? Because either this is a genuine outbreak or this is a very elaborate dummy run if this is not the beginning of the end. And after this, what I'm calling a dummy run, things will not be the same, because some of the jobs that will be lost will not come back. And that's going to be the next wave of panic and hysteria because of the economic collapse. Okay? But why I say this is a dummy run is because one of the things that they said, which I found so amazing, not as what they said so amazing, when you go out in the street, how few people are on road. And you think to yourself, why do you make a big deal about everybody going to work? And now all of a sudden you've locked everything down and you're telling people work from home. And right away there was conversation as to, can the internet cope with so many people being at home, streaming movies, using the internet and trying to work? And I actually saw at least 2 or 3 people carrying like some big Mac, like the PCs. So I don't know if their company gave them a computer to take home so they can continue working from home. But I saw 2 people with the same computer. So I'm thinking either they bought that because they were told that's what to buy. Actually, no, lie. One of the guys I saw with that computer, I should have asked him actually, he had a sticky note on it with his name. So somebody designated that computer for him. Okay. So everybody's not allowed out on road. But there's one group of people that I see on road every day. People laying fiber optic cables. Whether it's to increase the amount of internet people are using, obviously you're at home now, you're a sitting duck, so they can target you as much as they want because they know you haven't got much option. You have to watch the TV or use your devices. Then you've got people trying to push for 5G. Again, 5G has been proven to cause cancer. And allegedly, Wuhan is one of the places where they were trialing a lot of 5G. So even if coronavirus is real, is it possible that the constant bathing of radiation caused it to mutate? Or did the fact that these people were constantly being irradiated erode their immune system to the point where coronavirus could take hold? We don't know. But even with all of the things that's come out about 5G causing cancer, and the 5G wavelength is so short, you cannot have it big towers far away. 5G towers are small, but there's many of them, because even something as basic as like a damn tree could block the signal. So the excuse to have you irradiated all the time by this tower is, well, the signal won't be able to get through buildings. So for us to be able to give you this 5G that you claim to need, we have to put more towers closer to where people are living and schools and things. And what's that going to do for your mental health? What's that going to do for your physical health? That's why I made a video that this thing is about depopulation, because if you have older people will smell the rat and they will say, I'm not buying into that. And they will tell other people, this is not right, something here is fishy. You have to get rid of those people, because those people are old enough and wise enough to know something's not right about this. The young people are so dumbed down now, even if they suspect there's something not right, they're too busy taking pictures for Instagram to think about anything serious. Why do you think Cardi B is making a song, coronavirus, coronavirus, and everybody's laughing about it? Because people are so busy being caught up in dumb stuff that they're not even realizing she's just another shill and a puppet out here to lead people astray. But I'm not going to get on a rant about Cardi B because it's too much. We've already got coronavirus, and it's like, Cardi B or the coronavirus, which one could I handle more? I might actually take my chance with the virus, to be fair. But anyway, we're just moving swiftly on. So 5G now, and yeah, that's why I'm going to use the 5G picture, because in the station, they have like a huge tunnel through one of the biggest stations in London, and it's like, 5G, if it's not 3, it's not 5G. And I'm like, yeah, you're pushing 5G hard again now. Not this is not the first time, but people are going to be receptive to 5G, especially if after this period of having to work from home, their internet wasn't up to scratch. Remember, the thing about the antichrist is not that he's going to come by force. He's going to come as a man of peace. He's going to come as a man of solutions. He's going to come as a man with answers. So if you've got a problem, when he offers a solution, you're more likely to receive it if you're so ground down and worn out that anything seems